Well, that's Anthony Slater here from The Athletic, R95.7 The Game Insider here on the Morning Roast. And we love Slate's man, does an excellent job covering his basketball team. Missed him yesterday. I know he's on the train with crying babies going up from the nation's capital to New York City. But I know you made it to the Big Apple, right? You made it to the Big Apple safely, right, Slates?
I am here.
There you go. You are there. You are there. But despite the crybabies, it's like you didn't even get away from home, huh?
Hey, I'm not saying that on air. I'm not saying that.
You don't have to, man. You don't have to. All right, the big story, obviously, we'll get to Klay. We'll get to the rotations. I thought the breakdown on CP3, Klay, the slip screens, the Kaminga, I thought it was beautifully written the other day by you Slates. But Andrew Wiggins, he's out, second straight season. He's had to leave the team due to personal reasons. We're not going to speculate on what's going on. But from a basketball standpoint, the timing is not right? It's never good timing whatsoever. But with 25 games left, and he was playing his best basketball of the season, and it's just a weird season, right? One guy comes back, another guy goes out. One guy gets suspended, another guy goes out. Injuries, whatever it is, it just feels like it's been the theme of the season, Anthony.
Oh, for sure. 25 is interesting because that's the number he missed last year was the final 25 games, which, by the way, they actually played pretty good. 8-2 in the final 10 last year. They had a 5-game win streak right after he left the team. So, and that was when Kaminga, I thought, had a really good stretch.
Yeah.
Now that didn't translate into playoff rotation because Wiggins came back. But as far as now, yeah, I mean, look, Moody's going to get an opportunity, which I know the fan base has kind of been clamoring for. And, they have this crunch, which I wrote about the other night, right? This closing lineup issue where basically got like 8 options. Well, they need Wiggins. They need a lot of what he does on the wing defensively, but at the same time, Klay's playing really well off the bench. Chris Paul, Steve Kerr is going to want to close with him at times. Gary Payton, is healthy right now. He's a defensive ace you can kind of throw in important moments. So the fact that their rotation is very well built and healthy around, without Wiggins right now, I think puts them in a decent position to keep winning games.
Anthony, why hasn't Moody had a chance?
Because they view him as kind of like the wing on the outside looking in, who he's just buried, right? I mean, when they're healthy, you have Wiggins, Kaminga starting on the wing. You have Klay Thompson, who at this point in his career pretty much is a wing. You got Gary Payton, who they love to have like in various spurts of the game defensively. And I think, when Chris Paul was out and they were looking for a backup guard who could defend a little quick, could pick up full court, they went to Lester Quinones, and I think that told you plenty about what they view Moody positionally. They don't view him as a guard who defends quicker guards. They view him more as a 3, maybe even in some ways a 4. And on this roster, he's buried there.
Do you think there's some relief with Steve Kerr that he finally has figured it all out? He's been tinkering all season long. He's got kind of got his starters now without Wiggins in there, but then he has the bench with 2 future Hall of Famers on it. I mean, it feels like he seems more comfortable with everything, and he's not tinkering as much as he used to. Am I right on that?
Yeah, but, he's the next closing decision he makes in a loss that gets criticized, it'll feel differently, right? I mean,
right.
He's got other problems, or, they're good. They're better problems than, like you said, when more people are out, more people are injured, more people are struggling. But this is how it is in sports, right? When you're winning, everything seems to be, going well. If you go on like a 2-3 game losing streak, we're going to start to pick and choose the mistakes he's making, because usually when you're losing, 3 or 4 of your players are struggling. So we'll see, but I am curious kind of, when it comes down to it, we haven't really, with Chris Paul back, with Klay Thompson playing well, with their new starting lineup, we haven't seen them in, consecutive tough close games where he has to make difficult closing lineup decisions. I think that's where it gets more interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. Anthony Slater here on the Morning Roast right now on 95.7 The Game. Your story the other day, speaking of which, Klay Thompson is on fire coming off the bench here, averaging nearly 20 points a game, shooting 45% from 3. And we saw him and Chris Paul together. And then that slip screen with Kaminga. And you wrote it brilliantly in The Athletic the other day about that play, how Chris Paul's looking for Klay Thompson, and how maybe Klay Thompson's going to open up things for Chris Paul, having a Hall of Fame backcourt on the bench, 2 future Hall of Famers, a godsend for Steve Kerr, but also the spacing there. This is going to be great for that second unit. And the second unit's been good all season, Anthony, but now you get Chris Paul, you get Klay, and if you get a little Kaminga there, dive into the rim alongside Sarge, man, this is a dangerous, dangerous unit.
Yeah, Klay Thompson was saying Chris Paul like always puts it on the seams, like, best ever to do it. And, I don't know how much that does or doesn't matter for a shooter, but he seems to think it does it when they're doing even just like a little pick and pop on the side. Chris Paul does seem to time it up perfectly and get Klay Thompson kind of a rhythm shot. So if they can get a Klay Thompson hot streak, and we've seen in the last few years, even post injuries, like he'll have a cold month, but he'll have a really hot month too. And 3 out of his last 5 games are pretty big scoring numbers. So maybe he's on, at the start of kind of a hot stretch, which does change their team. As far as the second unit goes, he does provide the gravity. Kuminga was playing with him to close the first and third quarters. I wouldn't mind seeing him more also to start the second and fourth. They've been taking him out and going with Sarge, Trace Jackson Davis. Could you do Kuminga, Trace Jackson Davis? That might be a little bit tougher for spacing purposes.
Right.
But I would almost like to see more Kuminga, right? I mean, there was a point in time he was in the 5-minute total. Now it seems to be kind of mid-20s, but he's doing that like roster-wide. Draymond's really only playing like, low to mid-20s right now.
Right.
It's been interesting the way he's spreading the rotational level. I think that needs to get trimmed down at some point, right? As they head towards the playoffs, you're not really going to be playing an 11-man rotation where nobody's playing more than like 28 minutes a game. So it's interesting.
I got a couple more for you, Anthony. We'll go back to Wiggins in just a second, but 21-6-5 for Kuminga the other day. Did not take a 3-point shot, so the shot selection has been a lot better for Jonathan Kuminga as of late. Stephen Curry. Is this what do you see from Stephen Curry? Do you see a guy who's tired, as Steve Kerr referred to it? Curry, he debunked it when you asked him about it. He's like, nah, I'm not fatigued. Nah. What are you seeing from Steph Curry right now? It's just a little mini slump?
Yeah, I mean, which he has. Right. And I get, All-Star Weekend felt shortened this year. Obviously, he has a lot of duties on All-Star Weekend, so maybe he doesn't come back quite as refreshed as other players do. Yeah, I mean, like you said, he says it's just a shooting slump. He's really trying to kind of debunk it. But, he's turning 36 next month. This month, we can almost say. It's March tomorrow. And he's played all but 3 games. How many games have they played at this point? 58. So he's played like 55 with a heavy burden, especially early in the season. Remember how exhausted emotionally he looked early in the season with dealing with like the Draymond suspensions, all that. Like this has been a long season for him with a heavy workload. And I think right now, better than, he could probably use a rest night, but I'm not sure they can find it just considering where they are in the standings. But I think a night like what happened in Washington is good for him, where he wasn't good, but they won pretty easily because, they're having one of those nights where they look deeper, they're playing well. So if they can win while he struggles, then I think he can maybe get some of that energy back, where it isn't him having to play 38 minutes, having to shoot 25 times just for them to stay in the game.
And he's back in the building where he surpassed Ray Allen for the most 3-point makes in NBA history. He's had some memorable moments there. Studio 54, when he dropped 54 against the Knicks, hit the Garden. It's a great arena. I know you love covering it. So quick 2 ones here. I do want to ask you as a beat writer, covering a situation like this with Andrew Wiggins, because it's tough for us to navigate on the airways. You don't want to speculate, and we're not going to do that. We're not going to be reckless and start spreading rumors around, but you don't know what's happening here. How do you navigate a story like that? Because you had to go through it last year for 2 months. How do you navigate that as a beat writer? Because you're around the team every single day. Do you ask the question every day? How do you navigate a situation like this with Andrew Wiggins, Anthony, with the team?
Well, as far as like, in like public interview settings, like it's, you do ask Steve Kerr at least, once every few games. I asked him the other day, Washington, he, said he didn't know when Wiggins would be back and they're going to keep it private. Maybe I'll ask him tonight. I'll certainly ask him by the end of the road trip, continue to get updates, even though, kind of, it's one of those situations where non-updates are updates, kind of gives you a peek into the situation. And I was doing that all last season. And then beyond just like the press conference settings, you keep checking in with people. You keep trying to get as much information as possible. You try to navigate what should or shouldn't be shared publicly. It's kind of a delicate situation and a very, you won't say hidden situation, but like they really, like not many people in the organization are kept in the loop necessarily on this one. I mean, I remember we've talked about it, but last year I'd have people in the organization come out to me and seeing if I knew more, like if I knew different stuff going on, because like I said, it's kept within a small circle because that's how Wiggins wants it. we'll see if this I've had people be like, look, he could be back tomorrow. It could be much later. We don't know. So that's at least the public and even private line that they're keeping is they don't know.
Do you think this affects whether they'll have him back next year or not?
Certainly, I think everything affects it. I think Wiggins having a really strong finish to the season, and the Warriors, having going a few rounds into the playoffs would not just keep Wiggins' future intact, but a lot of this core's future intact. Klay Thompson. Whereas if they flame out, if they get bounced in the play-in, if Wiggins either isn't around or doesn't play well over the last 20 or so games in the play-in, like they'll reassess the roster from a financial standpoint and from a competitive standpoint. So in a roundabout way, like everyone's future in some ways is kind of on the line. Like I'm not sitting here saying, hey, if they get bounced in the playoffs, Steph Curry's gone. We all know that's not the case, but like a lot is on the line over the last few months.
There's no doubt. All right, last one for you, Anthony. You've been on the NBA circuit for quite some time. You've traveled to every arena. You're a big baseball fan. I know you love going to baseball games. You're a football fan. Obviously, you went to Orchard Park. I'm going to Orchard Park next year when the Niners go. I don't care damn when that game is. It could be in December. I'm going to take a couple of days off of pre and post and go out there to Buffalo because I want to experience that. But you're at the Mecca. You're at Madison Square Garden. Is that the arena when you first started covering basketball, covering the NBA? Is that the one arena that's kind of tugs at your heartstrings, or what is that arena for you?
I would say I remember being excited for it, especially early covering the NBA. I did a Christmas game here, which was really cool. It was Thunder Knicks back in the day, and just being in New York on Christmas and MSG was cool. But if I'm being honest with you, now that I'm like a grouchy older reporter, it's got to be the worst seat in the league.
You are way up there. I know that.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, Chase Center not that much better. A lot of these new arenas, are booting us further upstairs, but the security is like really tight in MSG. It's just like it's a lot harder to do my job. So to be honest with you, like I said, yes, I would answer your question.
Right.
I guess very sentimentally, maybe 10 years ago, but now I'm like, MSG tonight. Like, it's going to be tough to do my job.
And you see a rat the size of a small poodle run in front of you, and you're like, yeah, I got to get out of here.
I'll give it to you like this. I remember when Steph was getting close to breaking the 3-point record, I wanted him to break it in Indy because I was like, there's not going to be many people there. It's going to be really easy to just be behind the scenes reporting. When it was like, he's going to break it at MSG, I was like, this is going to be a circus.
It's always a circus in that town.
No doubt. So what is that arena now for you? Do you get up for any arena, or are you just that old grouchy beat writer you just mentioned saying, it's the same. It is what it is.
Well, I'm like, we're in Memphis tonight. I'm going to be sitting courtside. Oklahoma City, this is a great seat. Orlando, I'm like right behind their bench. I'm basically in their huddles. I'm like, those are the arenas I love.
Oh, man, that's funny, man. Real quick, before we let you go, Klay Thompson. We just mentioned him. He's on fire right now, coming off the bench, and he's been honest. He had an honest post-game interview with us on NBC Sports Bay Area the other day. He's been honest with you, Sam Amick. What do you think? Because I've been having a lot of fun with our audience here saying that Klay Thompson's going to get paid. A lot of people, we get some fans calling in or people thinking that he's going to get paid under $20 million a year. I don't see that happening. What do you think, Klay, with this new role here and having that perspective? He's still a great shooter. What do you think he commands on the open market next season?
Yeah, I think you're probably on target. With 20 being kind of the low end for a guy who's I think he's still fourth or fifth in the NBA and made threes. He was first last season. He has that competitive fire to him that I think would light up, potentially a young team. And Orlando's obviously been floated out there as a potential destination. But again, a little bit like what we were talking about earlier, I think the last couple of months matter, right? If he has a really good stretch, like coming off the bench, shooting it well, still playing 25 minutes a night, scoring, over 20 off the bench, like every other game, like, yeah, that's a really valuable weapon, right? Like, what is Buddy Hield going to get on the market? It's similar to that. But it depends on how the market materializes. I wouldn't have said Fred VanVleet was going to get what he got, but Houston really was like, hungry to jumpstart their rebuild and wanted to give a bunch of veterans money. So he'd need a team like in Orlando or somebody with cap space to really want to fast forward because he's a fast forward type player, right? You'd be getting him for the right now. So if there's a team out there, then that jolts up his market. Dylan Brooks' market was, probably a lot higher than people would have predicted last year at this time because Houston was willing to pay him that. So, Klay Thompson, he's still not even just like a coveted player to me, like a coveted like personality for a team.
Orlando Magic. Look out for them trying to drive up the price on Klay Thompson. But we'll get to that in a few months. Right now, the Warriors are trying to win their 7th straight road game. They try to do it tonight at Madison Square Garden. An arena Anthony is not too fond of as a reporter. Anthony, good stuff, man, as always, man. Have fun out there in New York. And good thing, it's not cold. Looks like the weather's great out there in the East Coast.
Great is a little strong, but it was a little rainy last night, a little cold front coming in. I think it's 40s today, but I'm just sounding so like such a hater today. So I'm gonna walk down to Empire State Building or something just to feel a little bit.
Wash away the hater vibes. Yeah, that's right. There you go. Wash away the vibes, man. Good stuff as always. We'll be looking for your work tonight, man. Good stuff, Slates.
All right, y'all.
Anthony Slater here on 95.7 The Game. Moody doesn't like MSG.